Hello. Welcome to another battleship inspection in World of Warships. We're looking at the Massachusetts, or I suppose the Massachusetts B. Should you spend I was about to say, should you spend doubloons this Black Friday on Massa B? You can't. You can only spend your real dollars. So if you've bought doubloons on a discount, you're fucked. Thanks, Wargaming. That's pretty cool. I think it's what, 30 bucks? Let's pretend it was for doubloons, even. Okay, best case scenario. Should you buy this thing for doubloons? If you play ranked, absolutely. I think. I think in ranked, it's still one of maybe the best 4 or 5 tier 8 battleships for tier 8 ranked. If you kind of only play randoms, I don't really think so. At least kind of for me. I get that there's a bit of preference here. And really my kind of my ultimate issue I personally have with the Massachusetts is the guns are not really like reliable. You don't you have a little bit worse vertical dispersion than North Carolina, but unlike North Carolina with 2.05 sigma, you get 1.7 sigma. So, if you've been playing Libertad, this ship basically has identical dispersion and sigma to Libertad. But, I mean, that thing has like 12 guns with high pen, right? So the guns are not super consistent, but I don't think they're total junk either. Really, the issue with the Massachusetts guns is typically what tends to happen is like when you really, this is what feels like happens when you really need them. They do 0 damage, and then like when you just spam shells across the map, you somehow double sip people, and it makes no sense. That's my experience when I play the Massachusetts. Really, there's theoretically 2 reasons to play it over North Carolina. One is the secondaries, and one is the improved heal cooldown, right? You get the 40-second heal cooldown. The 40-second heal cooldown is definitely really, really good on any battleship. It's retarded. I mean, I've said it in every review of a battleship with fast cooldown heals. It's a stupid as fuck mechanic. Delete it from my game, please. Thank you. And then the secondaries. And the secondaries on Massachusetts are actually quite weird because, a lot of people will compare this thing to Ohio. And in a way, compared to Ohio, the secondaries on this thing are crazy, right? Considering that it's like 2 tiers lower. But in a way, they're also nowhere near as good, even tier for tier. And what I mean by that is there's 2 components, right, to secondaries. There's hitting DPM, which is just kind of like the calculation of like your raw damage if you're getting the secondaries with normal dispersion hitting a target, assuming every shell pens, right? There's your effective hitting DPM, which is kind of a guess that we make, that's factoring in the pen on the shells, and then there's the fire starting, right? And Ohio is renowned for the high hitting DPM, right? It's like something like 80,000 base hitting DPM. Now, the secondaries don't pen anything, and they're basically the same secondaries on Massachusetts. So on Ohio, you have these secondaries that don't really pen anything, but they start a bazillion fires, right? I want to say Ohio has like 30 fires per minute base on its secondaries, which is crazy. Now, the way in which Massachusetts secondaries are nuts for the tier is they have like 75% as much hitting DPM as Ohio. Might even be like 80% as much. So against destroyers, the Massachusetts secondaries are kind of like basically as good as Ohio secondaries, which is nuts, right? Obviously nuts. And basically the 3 things you're doing with secondaries in Ohio, Georgia, Massachusetts are you're punishing destroyers, you are penning superstructure, and you're starting fires, right? So in the penning superstructure and fighting destroyers department, the Massachusetts secondaries are like completely cracked compared to Ohio, because like again, they're like 75-80% as good. The issue is the fire starting is extremely gimped compared to Ohio. You have about half the fires per minute as Ohio. Now, to be fair, if you're playing against all tier 8s, like you see this lobby, there's a couple of tier 9s, right? But if you're playing against mostly tier 8s and tier 9s, right, like North Carolina and stuff, they have reduced fire resistance compared to something like a tier 10. So having less fire starting is not always a problem. I mentioned this in the Cossack review, but the thing with Cossack is that Cossack has good fires per minute for a tier 10 destroyer, and it gets to fight tier 6, 7, and 8, right? So that's what I mean, like the guns can perform. We are just like deleting this North Carolina. I mean, he's a bit too broadside, right? Um, but like sometimes, every now and then the guns perform and you get big damage with them, which is really cool. But really, the only two reasons mostly to play this over NC are kind of the secondaries and the heal cooldown, which is why this thing is like objectively better in ranked than North Carolina. Now, the thing is in randoms where the game is often played a little bit farther back. You know, are the fast cooldown heals? We discussed this with like Monty versus Vermont, right? Are the fast cooldown heals really better than the improved percentage heal? I would argue like with if you're playing intelligently in your battleship, probably not. But if you play like a retarded bot, like a complete chimp in the middle of the map, like I am, trying to do every game in the Massachusetts, then like yeah, obviously the short cooldown heal is coming in clutch. Another thing with Massachusetts is it's one of like the OG Zero Citadel battleships. Um, if you're familiar with how difficult Wisconsin is to Citadel, Massachusetts is kind of has the same thing going for it. It's not impossible, especially when you turn, but the Citadel is underwater. It's not just waterline, it's underwater. It's very difficult to Citadel this thing, especially at close range. And, you know, aside from the German BBs in Tier 8, most battleships in Tier 8 have a very punishable Citadel. So that does make you quite, like, uniquely tanky in, like, you know, a pirate ship, like, drive-by situation, right? But back to the game that we're in. This is kind of what I'm trying to do every game in the Massachusetts. I'm trying to take central positioning as early, as quickly as I can. And then, like, here, this is what I mean. Like, the guns performing. I mean, there's nothing to be mad about, you know, 30k salvo on that Azuma at that range, right? 25k salvo. But then, like, other times you'll get cruisers flat at this range, and you literally won't hit a shell, or you'll hit, like, one or two shells. Which is obviously like extremely frustrating. I mean, to be fair, the North Carolina is not like the sniper that people make it out to be. I think a lot of people have rose-tinted glasses on NC from the Deadeye days, and they're like, North Carolina is so accurate, it punishes broadside so consistently, and it's like, you guys have to realize the Bismarck has better, like basically better dispersion, but worse Sigma than North Carolina, right? Because the Tier 8 American ships cannot take the aiming systems mod. So they're stuck with their basic, right? They're like very basic dispersion. So, you know, a lot of these Tier 8 battleships running aiming systems in slot 3 have better dispersion than North Carolina. They just have usually worse Sigma, right? Because North Carolina has very high Sigma for a battleship. But, you know, like, again, the only real difference on the guns between this and NC is you've got, like, I don't know, what, 5% worse vertical dispersion, which is not insignificant, right? And then you have 0.35 worse Sigma, which is a significant loss of Sigma. So they are noticeably less accurate than North Carolina, but it's not like you go from Wisconsin, you know, like Bungo with the spotter plane up or something to GK, right? It's noticeable. But again, you're trying to fight at closer range typically. I'm going to go down here, but this is kind of, to me, like the reason to play Massachusetts is you want to, you know, you want to take very central position very early if you can. You want to utilize, you want to burn through all the heals, right? You're tanking for your team. Because your individual salvo weights are not as consistent as many even in Tier 8 battleships that you could compete against, a lot of the time, to me, in this thing, you're kind of getting, like, your impact through just, like, your shell count. Like, vomiting shells out is a big one. But, I mean, the ship can still perform in randoms. Like, I'm not trying to say that the ship is terrible in randoms. Like, it's still, like, for Tier 8 battleships, it's still, like, solid in randoms. Great in ranked, solid in randoms, I do think. I guess just like where I'm at, I think there's other gimmicks that I maybe value. I think these secondaries are fully overblown. I mean, you see the kind of fires that we got. Like, let's see what the secondaries did, right? So even if we attribute all the fires to our secondaries, we did 15k. So, and I would say that's like fairly typical because again, even factoring in the fact that tier 8 ships have, you know, what is it, 37% reduction to fire or something? I think it's 37. Even fighting tier 8s, you are still running around with about 2/3 of the fire starting, like a solid 30 to 40% worse fire starting than Ohio, right? It's and the biggest problem that I have when people like try to talk the Massachusetts up as the tier 8 version of Ohio is that's a totally fair comparison to me when you discuss Georgia, because Georgia and Ohio have like god tier guns, right? I mean, they have above average guns for the battleships of their tier. Like well above average. The guns on Ohio and Georgia are cracked, right? Guns on Massachusetts are not cracked. They're fine, right? They're not horrifically bad. But like what's making Georgia and Ohio overpowered is the fact that they have the crazy gun performance, you know, crazy tanking, and crazy secondaries. Like that is kind of it's like the whole package. And Massachusetts is just objectively speaking missing the third component of that package. And in game 2 of the day, we have a very rare and elusive all tier 8 matchmaker. Now, they've got a sub. We can talk about subs in the Massachusetts. That's another strong reason why I just would never be caught dead playing the ship voluntarily in random battles. You have 5-kilometer ASW planes. So there's literally nothing you can do against submarines. There's literally not a thing you can do against subs in this ship. You're just a free kill. Subs against Massachusetts feels like, I don't even know. Subs against Minotaur, if you didn't take Hydro, it feels about that useless, basically. Might as well. Fuck him, right? Another thing to keep in mind, right? So, like, you see how my sub spawned on the flank? Now, normally sub spawns are mirrored, but, you see here, sub is dived. That's why he spawned middle. So, in a ship like Massachusetts especially, it's very important to recognize how the sub spawns work. Because if their sub was not dived, he would be mirrored spawn, and I would just run away. I would not play here if the sub was here, right? Now, what's my goal on this map in Massachusetts? Well, there's a couple of things that I could do. I could go bow tank on this island. I'm quite good at that. Or I could kind of play the long flank to get around A. The long flank to get around A is overall safer because I have more escape routes, obviously, right? And then theoretically I have the crossfire. But the thing is, like, this does not have consistent salvos to punish crossfires. So if I take that, you know, IJ line island flank and I don't get pushed into, then I'm like totally useless. So basically the debate in your mind in this situation is like, do I give my team value by bow tanking on a rock, or, which is definite value, right? Because there's a bunch of ships over here. Once I poke out from this rock, they'll probably all shoot at me, right? Because big dumb battleship, they have to. They can't help themselves. So that's guaranteed game impact. Bow tanking here, I'll get some damage. Or do I spend like 3 to 5 minutes trying to flank and then like risk that these guys turn away, which makes me useless, or risk my team doesn't push and they all rush me and kill me anyway, right? So I just kind of made the decision like semi-early, like right about now, that I'm going to go for the bow tank position. And a big part of it is how hard my team is struggling somehow to kill this lightning. And also how like passively my ships are playing. Like my Constellation's in a really good position. But my Ipiranga, it looks like he's going for the flank, right? So like it would not make sense to me in this specific situation to run the flank down. I just don't really think overall that would be the play. And the Massachusetts is so good for its tier at bow tanking. I mean, like in tier 8, you know, because of the heals, the crazy DCP, the decent armor, right? I mean, you are like probably close to like in tier 8 what a Kremlin tank's bow in tier 10. I mean, it's not quite the same because you get penned, but you're still very, very good at bow tanking. Now, we talked about the matchmaker being all tier 8. We talked about the sub being cancer. Obviously, a CV is cancer. Your AA is pretty okay. But I am running the 2-point AA skill, which I personally think is like virtually mandatory in random battles if your battleship doesn't need a 2-pointer and you can't make use of Brisk. I don't consider Massachusetts a candidate for Brisk personally, so the AA skill to me is a no-brainer. But they've got 3 Eperongas. And the Eperonga in a 1v1 against the Massachusetts just kind of wins for free. There's really no way of, like, sugarcoating that. I mean, the power creep is crazy. It really is quite unfortunate. Yeah, like the Eperonga, it's like it has almost the same just raw hitting DPM as you base, right? Like 75% is good hitting DPM as this thing. But the ship is like more maneuverable. The secondaries pen everything, right? His secondaries pen my whole ship. Mine only pen his superstructure. He just straight up has better armor than me, generally speaking. All things considered, probably a better heal, right? Because it's a 60-second instead of a 40-second cooldown, but it is the 65% pen repair. Also keep in mind that the Ipiranga heal, I think I forgot to mention this in the Libertad video, but those lines actually do get improved improved percentage heals as well. It's like halfway between a normal BB heal and a Montana heal. So it is improved in like basically every way. Like it heals 65% of your pen damage. It cools down in 60 seconds and it restores like an extra 3% HP per heal. It's just crazy. His secondaries pen me everywhere. He has basically the same raw DPM, same fire starting with his secondaries. Like, yeah, you're not killing that thing 1v1. And if it comes down to, like, a slugfest at close range, its HE is a bit better. So it also can kind of win that way. Yeah, you're probably not killing an Epiranga 1v1 if that guy is as skilled as you, right? And then, obviously, every time he pops the funny button, he gets, like, 44% improved secondary damage output, which is fucking retarded. So, like, if this was this exact same lobby 1 or 2 years ago, like, these would, instead of Epirangas, like, these would be other battleships, like maybe another Tirpitz or another Bismarck. And these ships you do definitely bully, right? Because your secondaries are a wash, your guns are a bit better, really, than Bismarck even, I would say, despite not being able to run aiming systems. You know, maybe about as good, maybe a bit better. Then you start more fires with the secondaries. And we can also talk about the HE. The North Carolina line, you know, in Massachusetts is kind of a North Carolina. You get really hard-hitting HE very early. Like, way, way, way better than a German. I want to say at this tier, German HE is hitting for, like, what, 4,500 to 5K. This HE is hitting for 5,700 with a respectable fire chance. Like, Massachusetts is a kind of, like, cringely good HE spammer. Like, you don't have very good accuracy, but like we talked about with GK, spamming HE, you don't need to be that accurate because you just need a bit of luck. But the HE is, like, quite capable. I definitely recommend spamming a good amount of HE in this thing because you don't really have the dispersion, the grouping to, like, pick out superstructure at 15 kilometers and chunk people. You know, every now and then you get lucky, but, like, I do definitely think the HE is just kind of more reliable at medium-long range. Against battleships, at least. Now, obviously, cruisers in this tier have, like, no armor. So, even these guns being a bit of a shotgun, you're still going to just, like, fire 2-3 salvos and eventually, like, basically dev strike the cruiser, right? I mean, it's a cruiser. But you see, like, how much value I'm getting out of the 2-point AA skill here. Basically, every time this CV tries to strike me, he's kind of giving me back one of my consumables, right? Now, you don't really get any value, really much value, out of the AA cooldown ability on your heal because it's already 40 seconds, right? It's like, by the time this guy comes back with planes, I'll probably just have reloaded the heal anyway, right? But really, it's mostly just for that DCP. When he's in my AA range, the cooldown instead of 80 seconds is going to be like 45 seconds, right? Because it's a 40-second improvement, so... it's pretty nice on a ship like Massachusetts, especially. I'm actually kind of the opinion that the 2 AA skill almost scales better against lower tiers with lower tier than higher tier, which is kind of weird. But typically, there's fewer carriers in lower tier that don't have to be in your AA, and I think that's really what it comes down to. Um, in tier 10, we have like what? We have like Essex, we have all the tech squadrons, right, from the Super CVs. We have, Nakimov. I mean, yeah, the tier 8 doesn't really have to be in your AA anyway, but there's so many carriers in tier 10 and super ship tier that don't have to, like, ever be in your anti-air range to drop you. And that's not really true of tier 8s. There's not that many that, like, totally disregard your AA to drop you. So that's why it's, like, kind of counterintuitive, but like in my opinion, I notice more value with the 2.8 skill on Massachusetts than on Vermont, like, or on Ohio. They're good on all of those ships, but like realistically speaking, I've noticed personally more value on the lower tier ships. But I mean, this game is just 100% over. Like there was realistically never any winning this. With the team that we had. It's one of those games where it's like you just, you're doing your job and no one else on your team does, so you're gonna lose, and it happens, right? It happens, and that's why, like with the Ohio review, right? We're trying to show, we're gonna do 3 replays, because this is what I'm trying to do every game in the Massachusetts, and my experience is that. Maybe if you do it 3 times, like one game works really well, like that last game. One game like doesn't work at all, either because you fuck up or your team is turbo trash, like my team was this game. And then like maybe another time it like kind of works, kind of doesn't, and you have to play a bit cautious, right? I think I said that in the Ohio review. I think I said that in the Marseille review. I think I said that in Kremlin review, right? I've said that in many of these pushing battleship reviews, and I think even in the current quote-unquote passive meta, in a ship that's definitely been power crept, like again, the Iparanga is just kind of better. As a secondary pushing ship, it's just better than this thing. But it still works like two out of 3 times. I do think that it still works like a solid 60+% of the time. Your definition of work may be different. First game objectively worked, right? We just ran up the middle. Second game, we didn't really have the ability because of the map and the spawn we got to push. And then in the third replay, we're going to kind of try to push, and then the game is going to devolve into a bit of a shit show. And game 3 on the day, we get what's, in my opinion, a bit more realistic matchmaker. We're bottom tier, but it's also kind of nightmare fuel because I am not just bottom tier, but their low tier ships are pure cancer, right? Like, there are games where like their tier 8 destroyer is like a Benson and something else that's kind of mediocre, right? Maybe their tier 9 DD is like a Black, right? Maybe their tier 8 destroyers are like Baltimore and something else in your Massachusetts. No, this is kind of as worse as it can get for a tier 8 to 10 because we've got like a ship that's literally unkillable for me. Both their tier 10 battleships. The Los Andes annihilates me. The Iparanga annihilates me. The Delaware, obviously the planes annihilates me. Crazy HE spammers. Even the tier 8 crazy HE spammer. Both the DDs are really good. Crazy HE spamming tier 9 DD, right? So it could be worse, right? We could be like the only tier 8 ship in the game, obviously. But for a scattershot tier 8, 9, and 10 game, it's pretty bad. It could be a lot better. But we do get a nice map to push in on, right? Now, my ultimate goal on this map is, generally speaking, if you look at the mini-map, push in, we got the flank spawn, push in through C, and try to basically just kind of spin around in the middle of the map and wait for an opportunity to commit to a push on either side. And, this is going to be one of those games where, like, your goal, it just never is allowed to happen, basically. I'm going to, like, continuously try to make it happen. And it's just, the combination of my team being pacifists, having what can only be described as fans on the enemy team, The combination of those two things, it's gonna kind of fuck the plan here. So like the Sipperanga is pushing, right? So I'm slowing down because I'm thinking, well, he's gonna get behind the rock, right? Well, now he can't. So now he's stuck bow in. Okay, so he's just running it down, and yeah, that's what he's doing. He is just absolutely running it down. Unfortunately, now we get to see like a serious issue with secondary ships is that the bug where they can't shoot is still in the game. I mean, it has to be a bug. I don't see what else it could be. Like your main guns can clear the island, but your secondaries that are literally mounted like higher than your turrets can't clear the island, even though they have twice as bad of shell arcs, right? In a way, I guess maybe it's a good thing they haven't fixed this bug, because then secondary BBs would be like nuts, because you could like park behind islands very consistently. But you see how, like, again, how they stopped shooting the Baranga briefly. It's just very, very buggy trying to get secondaries to launch over an island. But you see here, like, the very brief amount of time these secondaries are targeting the DD, we got like a couple thousand damage off him. And that's what I mean, like, compared to even Ohio secondaries on destroyers, they're almost as good, which is kind of crazy considering you're, 2 tiers lower. So, their Eparanga is, I mean, this is bannable gameplay. If I was in charge of World of Warships and someone sent this replay in, he would be banned for a minimum of like a week in random battles, because he's either full-on scripting, like literally running a bot, because you notice he never even turned his guns to shoot me when I was flat broadside, which means he's either literally a bot or he just pressed the W key and went away from keyboard. Yeah, that guy would not be playing randoms for at least a week in my World of Warships. But okay, so the retarded, suicide pusher's dead. So now I can go, okay, I'm back on game plan, baby. We're back on the game plan. We're going to go push middle, right? We've got a Cherbourg over here, right? We're going to go push middle. Look at this. I've got 3 ships here. They have no support, right? This Kagero just has to, he outspots the Fantasp by like 1.3 kilometers or some crazy shit, 1 kilometer. He just has to spot that guy, right? It's going to be totally fine. But we know we have a pacifist team developing, right? And I will confess a bit of a lack of game sense. At this stage of this replay, I had not yet noticed that my team was full pacifist, right? Where like our tier 10 BB is kiting in spawn, our tier 10s are kiting in spawn, right? The only ships in a reasonably useful position are tier 8s, right? That kind of thing. So, I'm spotted here. I don't really know what it is. I'm kind of, so, okay, the Cherbourg is parked on this island. He hasn't moved, so he's rock camping. The Mines is rock camping. I'm spotted by probably the Lightning, right? So, okay, I wanted to play aggressive. I wanted to push. Okay, we're reading the room, right? We're reading the room. The entire team is rock camping because our entire team is spawn camping, right? So if I keep pushing out in the open, I will die, right? Mines has a lot of DPM, right? If I get in a spot where Conqueror can hit me, that's not good, right? And I still don't know for sure what's spotting me, right? So now, okay, the Groningen smoke spamming, so is the Lightning. Groningen has demonic DPM, so we definitely can't push into that. So now we need to run away again. My Kagero is still AFK on a rock. My tier 10s are still all AFK in spawn. So now we gotta run away again. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Listen. This is zero cope. zero cope, trust. We're getting game impact by being the only thing being shot at, right? There's some truth to that. Is it cope? Yeah. But there's definitely some truth to this. Like, the Groningen has crazy amounts of DPM, right? Crazy amounts of DPM. He, for like a solid 20-30 seconds, chose to shoot me instead of the tier 8 destroyer who's in his Hydra, right? Because he just wanted to farm the battleship, right? He's not farming these guys down here, right? He's mostly just trying to farm me. The Mines is like literally AFK to farm me. So this is, yes, there's a bit cope, but you need to cope your way into some game impact sometimes. And yeah, it cost me another heal, right? But it's fine. I'm still going to be back to, 45,000, 46,000 HP, right? So I've still only permanently lost like a third of my ship, right? The heals are, the fast cooldown heals, right? So Okay. Siluangi's dead. The lightning's on the run. Okay. All right. Now we can push back. Now we can push back. The plan is still on. The plan to push the triangle is still on, baby. Um, it's just and I've said this too. I've said this too. Okay, so the lightning's dead. Like that's obviously a huge kill that he just detonates. That means the key with that kill is obviously then the Groningen cannot both farm me and spawn me, right? Which is pretty massive, undeniably. Um, so now it's the plan is let's push back in again, right? The heal's back off cooldown. We got the DCP up. It's fine. But anyway, what I was about to say is I've said this many times of trying to convince your team to stop being AFK, and listen, sometimes they'll never stop being AFK, right? There are games where they just refuse to ever stop being AFK. Those games do happen. But they're also not going to stop being AFK if you then go AFK and spawn, right? Like, the safe play here, and what I see like 80% of players doing, is they just relocate over here and group up with their team. That's what I mean. Remember when I said when you need the guns to work, they don't work? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is crazy. Basically, we hit 0 shells because we got a ricochet, which means we skipped off his, I believe, off his deck or his turret. So basically, none of those shells went within a country fucking mile of where we aimed them. So we pushed back middle. And now the Groningen's AFK farming us. We're getting shot at by BB's AFK and spawn. It's fine. It's fine. We just back up again. It'll be totally fine. It'll be totally fine. My Colombo and my Almirante are still AFK and spawn. It's fine. Doesn't matter. But see, look at this. Look at what's developing over here. My Vermont and Yoshino are no longer AFK, right? 9 minutes into the game, they have pressed. 9 minutes into the game, they are 1 grid square north of where they spawn. Pretty massive. So now we're just kind of chilling. And the big reason I'm chilling now instead of pushing back up is the Conqueror is like just a ship that I don't have a single solitary fucking chance of killing. Basically like 3 AG salvos just kills me, right? Because he's going to like 10 plus K me every time and get a fire every time. So one of those salvos I'll have to DCP, and then there's perma fires. So now, these are at the end of the day, this is North Carolina AP, right? Which is not, amazing, but at this kind of close range, it's like it has a good pen, right? Like you do have a very respectable amount of pen. Like, you're definitely going to Citadel a Conqueror at like 13 even kilometers or something like that, right? Because it has the above water Citadel. So okay, look at this. He's flat. He's perfectly flat. He turned in very slightly, right? And we get a non-pen. Yeah, that's not a thing. That is a case of just this game being a pile of shit, because at 11 kilometers, the Massachusetts, even factoring in like the impact angle of the shell arc coming in, has like a solid 50 millimeters more penetration than required to Citadel Conqueror at an 85-90 degree angle. So getting a non-pen on his exposed Citadel belt is, as we would say, a classic didn't happen. Like it's just not a thing. That 100% should have been a Citadel. This happens a lot in this game, by the way. Like quote unquote physically impossible things. Like that is physically impossible. For these shells, like they're only coming in at like a 9-10 degree angle. He's flat. And we're getting a non-pen, even though at that range we have over 500 millimeters of penetration, right? Yeah, it's just not a thing to not get a Citadel there. Sometimes this game is pure dog shit, and that's one of those times. So, we backed up. The heal's back. The DCP is coming back. The plan is still on, man. The plan has never changed, right? Although we have quite an interesting plan developing at 8. Listen. I am going to humbly suggest that if you are in a Colombo and you are running away from a mines and an Alaska and you're on more than 1 HP, you need to have your fucking head examined. that's a crazy fight to run away from, honestly. So okay, nice. We get instant double fire because I pushed out without the DCP, thinking that it would probably be up by the time I needed it. No, nope. Fact check false. It's fine because we still got one heal left, right? Still getting non-pens and torp protection on this. Like, you see the kind of angle he was when those shells hit at 9. I don't know, dude. I'm not really buying it, honestly. That's a little bit more reasonable because we hit him at like a 60-degree angle instead of 90, but still a bit crazy. And this Groningen is still, he's a range mod Groningen enjoyer. I mean, the Kagero, like the radar's dead, the Kag is hiding on a rock. Like, it's just crazy. Like, the amount of pacifists on this team were just unbelievable. I mean, and like, this game is very losable because of how pacifist my team has been. Because I've traded all of my heals to just hold the map. Like, basically the idea of being here, pushing in, retreating, pushing in, retreating, pushing in, retreating. The idea is, if I am not here, right? Like, let's pretend that I have the same amount of sand in my vagina as this Kagero, right? Our Vermont, all these ships had, right? And I did the thing that most people would do, and I ran away and I kited because I wanted to live, I wanted to farm damage, right? I didn't want to burn through my heals. The problem is then there's no deterrence for them to take middle. And if they take middle, then we just lose, right? Like, that is the reason why I'm doing this. Even though I'm not, like, getting anything out of it, right? I'm not getting kills, I'm not getting damage. Truly a back to our best moment, though. Undeniably fucking cool as hell. That's where, remember what I said about how these guns don't work when you need them to work? And then, like, when you just vomit shells at nonsense, they somehow get giant damage? I mean, like, the cringe is just the constant, like, the fact that this Kagero won't just kill him is insane too. Like, let's talk about this, how, like, he needs literally 2 shells to kill this mines. Nah, fuck that, just let him farm your team. Now he shoot, like, these players, dude, these players, man, they give me aids, they give me fucking aids. Now he shoots. Like, he didn't shoot when the mines easily could have gotten like a double fire on me. He shoots. I can't, we're not gonna rant about the player base, we're just not gonna do it. But anyway, that's like the idea is, this is suffering. Like, I'm not trying to pretend that this win, it is going to be a win, because at the end of the day, like, we just clawed it out. But, like, I'm not going to pretend that this wasn't a pure suffering win, because it was. It was a pure suffering win. Trying to play positionally in a battleship when no one on your team plays positionally. Yeah, it's fucking cancer. Yes, undeniably. I'm not saying this is going to be fun for you, but, like, the unfortunate reality is, like, you're in a bottom tier, right? We're tier 8 in a tier 10 lobby. Your team is pacifist. Like, probably the only way you're going to get any game impact is by just trying to be a cockroach, right? Like, that's the unfortunate reality is, I'm just trying to be a fucking cockroach. Because Massachusetts is a bit of a cockroach. Like, even bottom tier, right? Like, yes, obviously to sustained fire, you have like 30,000 less, HP than in Ohio, right? Like, the Ohio is going to take, instead of dying in 2 minutes to focus fire, it's probably going to take 3 or 4, right? Obviously, because of your HP being much lower. But, if you can isolate and you're only getting farmed by like maybe one guy and you have an escape route, it's not the end of the world that you're bottom tier. You're just, unlike that first replay, you're not going to be able to just, like, run in, right? You're not going to be able to just run in and find game impact by, smacking people. Obviously, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to try to find game impact by, by just being a fucking, playing your life, being a pig on a rock. And that's kind of another reason why, like, the Ipiranga is kind of just better than Massachusetts, not just in rank, but really to me in randoms, is like, the armor is so much better. It's so much more resistant to HE spam. The heal in the long term, because of the improved repair, like the pen percent that it repairs, is so much better. But the secondaries pen everything, and like, that's the thing, is, I talked about how this has like half the fire starting for its secondaries as the Ohio does, which is true. And I also mentioned that it's not really half when you're fighting tier 8s because they have 37% reduction to fire instead of 50, which is true. But like that's obviously doing nothing for you when you're fighting tier 10s in this thing, right? Like when you're fighting tier 10s in the Massachusetts, like you don't start any fires. Now, DCP was down. We were on 15,000 health. We took a Yodo Torp, didn't flood. Let's talk about it. Amazing torp protection on this thing for tier 8. I can't remember if it's literally the best in the game. I want to say maybe the Alabama has like the same or a couple percent better, but it's well over 40 torp protection in the mass. I want to say it's like high 40s, 46 something, some 45, 46%. Really good torp protection for this tier, especially is like amazing. So that is a big asset that you have. Being able to take a Japanese cruiser torp midsection and not lose 15,000 health to it and not flood, right? Like, if that was in North Carolina, I would have died, right? I 100% would have died to that torpedo in North Carolina because it doesn't have good torpedo protection, right? So that is another tanking asset that this thing has, which is undeniably really cool. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like this is one of the most overhyped battleships in the game. Like Ohio is overhyped. I think I mentioned that, but it's still overpowered, right? Like Ohio is overhyped, but it's overpowered in the sense of like probably no BB's really killing it in a 1v1 kind of a thing, right? And the guns are like way too oppressive against cruisers, whereas like there's plenty of things that are going to kill Massachusetts, right? And as I'm looking at these ships that are available for Black Friday, we're gonna try to look at the ones that are either like rare ships, like we looked at JB in Alaska and Cossack, and Massachusetts. I think we'll look at Asashio, and then the ones like San Diego maybe that are like discounted or something. I think, right? You can use the coupon on them, right? It's like, what game modes is it good in? Does it matter if it's up tier? Does it uniquely shit on things if it's top tier, right? These kind of questions. We looked at Cossack on the weekend. Cossack is so much better than the ship. It's kind of like not even funny. I mean, Cossack is in its tier probably the best destroyer in the game in randoms. Yeah, probably the best. Probably the best destroyer in the game in ranked. Probably the best destroyer in tier 8 in clan battles. How about Massachusetts? Definitely not the best tier 8 BB in randoms. I would argue not even really in ranked now that Ipiranga exists. In clan battles, like, it's good because it's tanky, but I think that's a fundamental flaw in a lot of people's thinking. Because that's not really what you want, in my opinion, from a battleship in clan battles. Like, to me, what you want from a battleship in clan battles is consistent punishing of cruisers. Like, tanking is nice, but it's not really giving your team anything, right? That's why, like, typically, like, at least in North America, once you get in like higher tier clan battles, like you stop seeing ships like Ohio and Kremlin that tank, and you start seeing ships that cross map, right? Like, this is a very solid ship in ranked. It's very good in ranked. It's fine in clan battles to me. It's good in randoms, but it really does matter if you're bottom tier. Like, this is no Cossack, right? Like, this lobby, dude, if I was in a Cossack, I would have just put on a clinic. This would not have been a sweaty, suffering win to eke out second place on the team and 2 kills. Like, bruh, this game in the Cossack would have been a clinic. It would have been MVP. It would have been 3K base XP MVP. The entire enemy team was dog shit, and my team was pacifist, which is like god tier situation for Cossacks. You can just play in the enemy team's mouth, right? They only had 1 radar. This would have been a demonic Cossack game. And to me, like, that's kind of what it's coming down to. If you like, what ship are you going to get? Like, I recognize that this is a hot take, but I don't think you're like missing out on that much to not have the Massachusetts. I really don't. I would maybe not have said that if like the Ipiranga didn't exist, But honestly, I don't know. Like the ship's in a weird spot where like the tanking is great, right? But it's no longer unique, right? Honestly, in this tier, think of this: you have Monarch now with the super heal. Monarch is probably like objectively the tankiest tier 8 BB in the game right now. So you have way better tanking in Monarch. I think overall better tanking in Ipiranga. Honestly, about the same tankiness in Kansas, although the guns are kind of meh. Um, so the tanking is nice, but it's no longer unique. The secondaries are really good against destroyers because they're almost Ohio secondaries against DDs. But like the second you're using them in the Ohio way against battleships, right, you're hoping for fires, especially if you're low tier and you're relying on fires to kill BBs. It's they're junk all of a sudden because the fire starting's not it's half as good as Ohio, right? So even though the hitting DPM is close, basically the reason for that is these secondaries are like a 5% fire chance and Ohio's like 9 or 10, right? So you have almost double the fire chance per shell on Ohio. Um, I don't really think this playstyle is that unique. Um, I don't think it's anything like Cossack, where like Cossack is not necessarily unique because I guess Lightning kind of plays the same way, but Cossack is the undisputed king at the type of playstyle that it has, and I don't think that's really true of the Massachusetts anymore. Um, yeah, let's hop back in the port. Okay, the equipment. This is a bit of a debate. I think I have this on there from like before I ran cold DCP and everything. Um, maybe cold DCP is the play. Although I will say that like because the guns are fairly underwhelming, if you do start losing secondaries, then you are kind of starting to lose part of the point of playing the ship, right? Whereas something like Ohio, like you could take the secondaries away and it would still be like a great boat. It's not really true of this thing. We're going a secondary build not because it's the best, but because like, well, I mean, on this ship it is because like it's a USN BB, so like, what are you gonna take range? I mean, like you're not. Let's be honest, you're not hitting shit at 18 anyway. Probably it's kind of a shotgun. I like prop mod more than damage control. You saw in that second replay how much shit we dodged from the carrier torps via prop mod, and then concealment on the captain. It's the same. It's basically the Ohio build. Um, like I said, I think there's even like almost more value from this skill in lower tier. Also, 36-second turret traverse time compared to, I think I want to say North Carolina has 45, so that's improved as well. Um, is Massachusetts probably better with a full tank spec? Yeah, yeah, probably, right? I think I said the same thing about Ohio. But like, bro, come on, man. Like you're really gonna play this ship with a full tank, full concealment spec? Come on, dude. Let's play the game, Let's play the fucking game. Um armor wise, it's kind of like NC, but again, the real big one. Actually, can I look at my North Carolina? Yeah. The real big one, because right, you both have the 38 deck, you both have the upper side, right? Um, and because this is torque protection, right, you might say, oh, well, North Carolina has, heavier armor. It doesn't matter, right? Because any hit to torque protection, but nothing else doesn't count as damage, right? So it's, this armor is just better. But realistically, the true issue is the underwater citadel. Like, it is quite underwater. Compare that to North Carolina, which is like a third up the way out of the. Actually, no. I don't remember North Carolina. I forgot. You know what? I forgot that they lowered it. So North Carolina is waterline, and Massachusetts is underwater. So like, and right, like we said with Montana, having a waterline citadel, but an overmatchable roof, right? It's 19 in the middle, um, means that like even if they don't hit waterline, right? If a shell hits like here, it comes in and hits the citadel. So when Massachusetts is flat, it's very unlikely to take a citadel, which is just a pure bullshit gimmick that it has going for it. Lest you think that retarded BB game design just sprung out of a hole in the ground. No, it's been in the game for quite a while. It's a good ship. It is quite good. undeniably. I just, if I want to be like a silly, goofy tank, I play Monarch. Like, Monarch is so silly. For a tier 8, that ship is, like, in tier 8 lobbies, right? Because nothing in tier 8 has 460s. It's literally unkillable. Like, there's nothing that can kill this thing in a tier 8 game. It's pretty silly. Iparanga is better at pushing because the secondaries pen everything, right? Iparanga's secondaries, you have to remember, pen 38. Here we go. Yep, they pen 38. So in a 1v1 against Massachusetts, you have the same fire starting, you have the same damage output with your secondaries, but all of his shells pen your whole boat. None of yours pen his. And he pops the F key, and then he has like 40% better damage output than you as well. So you don't kill something like an Epiranga in the Massachusetts, really. Yeah, in a 2 years ago, I could see, like, because remember, if we go back 2 years in time, there's no Monarch super heal in tier 8. There's no Ipiranga crazy secondary, crazy heal, same DCP in tier 8. And there's no improved heal Kansas in tier 8, right? So in tier 8, you kind of were like both basically the tankiest BB in tier 8, and you kind of had the best secondaries in tier 8. And now I don't think either of those things are really true. I mean, like, I think it's $30, so it's like, yeah, if you like want the black, like, that's not that much money. If you're the kind of guy who spends a few $100 on this game, like, sure, might as well get the Massachusetts for $30. But if you're one of those players who, like, has a strict budget, you're like, I am only gonna spend like $200 a year on the game. You usually spend that on half off doubloons, that kind of thing. And so you're like, I'm only going to get one ship this Black Friday for real money. Like, I don't really think it's this. Then again, I don't think it's a Sashio. And the tier 9s, what do they want for the tier 9s? Don't they want like $100 fucking dollars for them? So that's kind of tough, undeniably. But, like, let's say you're gonna buy doubloons for a Black Friday ship. Like, I would not get Massachusetts. Like, I would buy doubloons and I would get Cossack or San Diego. That's just me. I think both of those ships are, like, more fun, more unique, maybe even stronger in their class and their tier. I do absolutely love San Diego and Cossack especially, but even San Diego I think is, like, amazing. Yeah, that will do it for the Massachusetts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.